What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Chatting with Cheese podcast. I'm your host, Fat Cheese, and y'all already know the motto: no gimmicks, only the real. This is episode 56, and before we get into it, y'all know what I need from y'all. I need y'all to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. We are on our way to 300 subscribers. Also, do not forget to share the content when it drops. And before we get into it, I need y'all to make sure, if y'all haven't checked out my last two recent episodes, y'all go do that. My last episode, I dropped a collaboration episode with my boy D Gray. Shout out to D Gray. Go check that one out if you haven't. And the episode before that, I dropped my full interview with Micah No Limit Phillips. Great conversation, great energy. If you haven't checked out that interview, I need you to go back and check that out, man, and comment down below if you do and let me know what you think. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So, I know y'all probably getting tired of it, right? But this is what happens during the off season. You know what I'm saying? You kind of get the same repetitive stories and things like that. But these are the hot topics right now. So, since I didn't get a chance to talk about this when it happened, I made a short clip on my TikTok and dropped it on Instagram. I spoke on it. I spoke on my last episode with D Gray. I talked about who did I feel like was going to get paid. Who did we feel like would get paid first between Micah, Parsons, and Terry McLaurin. And then boom, we had breaking news. Both of those guys after that episode requested a trade from their teams. So I'm going to go ahead and speak on them requesting trades and give you my thoughts on what I believe will happen. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. I'm going to start with Terry McLaurin first. So the Washington Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin has requested a trade from the team due to ongoing contract extension negotiations, according to reports. McLaurin reported to training camp on Sunday but has been placed on the physically unable to perform list as he has not been able to come to an agreement with the team on a new contract. The team has stated they don't intend to trade him and are still working towards a new deal. Head coach Dan Quinn's comments on the situation. Coach Dan Quinn acknowledged McLaurin's trade request as normal business in the NFL and mentioned that McLaurin informed him of the request before it became public. Quinn also stated that the situation hasn't been a distraction for the team. The core issue is the lack of progress in contract extension negotiations between McLaurin and the Commanders. McLaurin is considered a key player for the Commanders, especially with the development of quarterback Jaden Daniels. While the Commanders reportedly don't want to trade him, the situation could evolve and other teams may express interest in acquiring McLaurin. Five-time 1,000-yard receivers don't just hit the market every day. And just for you guys who may not know, these are Terry McLaurin's stats from last year. He had 82 receptions, 1,096 yards with 13 touchdowns. So my thoughts on the Terry McLaurin side of things. I feel like Terry McLaurin doesn't want to leave Washington. I just believe that it's frustration on his end, wanting to be in camp with his guys. We've known Terry McLaurin since he's been in the league. He's never been one of those type of guys to, be very vocal or be considered a diva. I just think Terry McLaurin felt like requesting a trade was kind of like the last straw, the last thing that he possibly could do to try to get the contract that he's seeking. But I don't think Terry McLaurin really wants out. The team has been backing him. You've seen Jaden Daniels constantly back Terry McLaurin. And I think Washington should just get it right now. I think based off of just Terry McLaurin's loyalty towards the franchise, him being there with the lack of quarterback play that he's had to play with throughout these years. Now you finally get him an elite guy. He shows you what he's capable of. I think just based off of his loyalty alone, that should have got him a contract extension. But I do kind of understand where Washington stands on their end, being as though Terry McLaurin is 29 years old. He's looking for he's looking for $30 million plus. And nowadays when you see them type of receivers making that type of money, they're normally in that 25 to 27 range. We seen it with DK Metcalf. He got $33 million a year. He's 27 years old. You seen what's my guy? You seen my guy from the Jets, just Garrett Wilson. You just seen Garrett Wilson get 32 and a half. He's 25 years old. So I kind of understand where Washington is, how Washington is looking at it from their standpoint. But at the end of the day, for Terry McLaurin to only be making the money that he's making, I believe this year Terry McLaurin is only going to be making, like, if I'm not mistaken, about 15 to 17 million. I think Terry McLaurin definitely should be at least making $30 million a year. When you look at guys like Brandon Ayuk getting $30 million a year, Garrett Wilson just got his money, and I believe Terry McLaurin is better than Garrett Wilson, in my opinion. I think eventually these things will get ironed out, and I don't see a scenario where Terry McLaurin is not a Washington Commander this upcoming season. I seen reports that the Patriots are interested. I seen reports about the Steelers reaching out, but I just find it hard to believe that Washington, coming off the season that they're coming off of, that they would decide to deal their young stud quarterback's best weapon right before the season. And I feel like that would kind of like take all of the air out of the season. The fans love McLaurin, and his players are supporting him. And I think he has support from the front office. I just believe that, the age discrepancy is kind of the only thing that's holding it back. But I feel like all in all, I believe something will get done. And I think the right thing for Washington to do would be to get something done. I think if you were to not get something done and allow and move on from Terry, I believe that would leave a sour taste in the fan base's mouth, and that just wouldn't be good for anybody. So I think something gets ironed out. Terry McLaurin showed up to camp. He didn't want to get those fines, of course. So I think for the most part on that, I think Washington fans probably are a little worried right now, but I think all in all something will get done with Terry, and I think something has to get done if you want to continue to ride, if you want to build off of what you guys started last year. Washington has been a dumpster fire for years, and the only consistent thing for them has been Terry McLaurin up until last year when Jaden Daniels got on the scene. I think Washington should do the right thing by Terry McLaurin and give him his money. And a report came out today saying that something about basically saying he didn't want exactly $33 million what DK was making, but he wanted, I guess, the parameters or something to be something in DK's contract. So like I said, I don't know, I'm not looking, it's not exactly in front of me, but I do believe that they'll get some ironed out. I think that he at least deserves a little bit more than what Garrett Wilson got paid, because I believe Terry McLaurin is a better receiver than Garrett Wilson. 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and last year he showed you what he can do when he has an elite quarterback under him. So I believe Terry will get his money eventually. I just think him requesting the trade was probably what he felt like was kind of like the final straw, something that he had to do to kind of make it urgent for the front office to get something done. Moving on to my Dallas Cowboys, unfortunately. Now I'm going to speak on Micah Parsons' side of things. So, Dallas Cowboys pass rusher Micah Parsons has made a request to be traded. Parsons took to social media Friday to make the announcement and went through his version of events that led to his decision to want to move away from the franchise he grew up adoring and that drafted him in the first round in 2021. Both sides acknowledged there have not been discussions regarding a contract extension. Parsons is set to make $21 million this season on the 5th-year option of his rookie deal as a defensive end, not the reported $24 million that he would make if he was a linebacker. The relationship between Parsons and the Cowboys have worsened in the past 4 months, in part because owner and general manager Jerry Jones was of the belief that the sides were close to an agreement on an extension that would have made Parsons the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, sources said. Parsons said his agent David Mulugheta approached the Cowboys prior to last year about a contract extension, but the team's focus was on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, who became the highest paid quarterback and the second highest paid wide receiver, respectively. When the 2024 season ended, Parsons said he told Mulugheta to tell the team they were ready to negotiate. My agent informed me I should wait for other deals to get done because the price will only go up, but I didn't care and wanted to secure myself as a Cowboy long-term, Parsons wrote. Parsons admitted he had a back and forth with Jones, who later at the NFL owners meeting in Palm Beach, Florida, said they came to an agreement on the length, total money, and guaranteed portion of the deal. Speaking to reporters on Saturday, the Cowboys owner dismissed Parsons' trade request as part of negotiations. Asked whether he considered trading Parsons, Jones said, "I don't really place that with any real seriousness." Jones compared the trade request to the bad back that is keeping Parsons from practicing. It's all a part of an effort to get a deal done. Is Jones surprised? Not really at all. This is just negotiations. My thoughts on this whole situation, and when the report first came out that Micah Parsons requested a trade, I automatically went full nuclear mode on the front office and the Jones family. And I don't backtrack on none of my statements. I still believe that this is the worst front office in the NFL due to the fact that we've seen this happen literally it's like back to back years. First it started with Zach Martin. Then it went to CeeDee Lamb. Then you paid Dak Prescott last year, literally hours before Week 1 kicked off, and now we dealing with it with Micah Parsons. The way that Jerry Jones and his son go about publicly discussing contracts and throwing their players under the bus year after year after year, and not only are they throwing players under the bus, they're throwing their best players under the bus. And it's like they constantly do it. I don't know if it's for publicity. I don't know if it's for... I do know. Let me take that back. I do know. It is for publicity. It is for headlines. And I just think the way that they have went about this has been all wrong. I feel like his comments about, even if they pay Micah, is no guarantee they'll have him because of his injury last year, and with Dak getting paid and getting injured last year, those shots at your star players were just completely uncalled for. And I just feel like I see where Micah Parsons is coming from. If I'm going out there laying it all on the line for you week after week after week after week, and to hear when it's time for me, and this is the bad part about negotiations when you try to get yourself involved, because you get to hear what these guys and what these owners actually think about you. Mind you, Micah Parsons missed 4 games last year with a high ankle sprain and still had double-digit sacks. Micah Parsons, I believe, has had double-digit sacks every year since he's been in the NFL. Not I believe, I know that. In my personal opinion, Micah Parsons is the best defensive player this team has had since DeMarcus Ware. Now, do I believe that a deal will get done? I've been a little nervous. I ain't gonna cap. I've been a little nervous. But from all the reports and things that I've seen, I do believe a deal can get done. People could say whatever they want about the Joneses. Are they horrible at their jobs? Absolutely. But when it comes to paying their guys, they do that. Like they do it. Dak got paid. They made Dak the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And a lot of people didn't agree to that. Dak Prescott is getting paid $60 million a year right now because of what Jerry Jones and that front office did. CeeDee Lamb is one of the highest paid receivers in football. You know what I'm saying? When Zach Martin held out because he wanted his money, they made sure Zach Martin got paid. So one thing we know about the Joneses, they pay their guys. I just believe Jerry Jones' ego took a hit when Micah Parsons wanted to involve his agent and pull whatever agreement him and Jerry Jones came to off the table. And I'm pretty sure Micah probably went back to his agent and said, hey, I listened to what Jerry had to say. I kind of like the deal that Jerry placed on the table, whatever. I think we should take it. His owner probably knew that Myles Garrett and TJ Watt was coming down the pipe and told Micah to hold fast. Now, I'm going to put some blame on Micah too. I got to put some blame on Micah too. If you know you're up for a contract or you're trying to get a contract, you can't go be buddy-buddy with Jerry Jones and not have your agent present. And then when a contract is presented to you and you do a back alley handshake or whatever the case may be, and then all of a sudden turn around when your agent tell you, oh no, we're going to wait for these other guys and put it off the table. You can't do that. Your agent should have been present at all times. See, but when you go on the Big 12 games and the Super Bowl and all that with Jerry, everything is all fine and dandy. I'm going to put some blame on you too, bro, about that. I'm going to put some blame on you. You can't have it both ways. You can't be buddy-buddy one moment and think everything good and do little back alley deals and all that, and then switch over, you know what I'm saying, now that shit, I'm going to say, ish starting to hit the fan. So I think it's a two-way street. I think both are in the wrong. I think both sides. But do I ultimately think a deal will get done? I'm praying. I'm hoping. As a Cowboy fan, I'm praying that a deal does get done because Micah Parsons is the best player on the team. And if the Cowboys want to remotely be able to think that they're going to do anything this year, Micah Parsons is going to have to be on the field. And a happy Micah Parsons, not a disgruntled Micah Parsons, a happy Micah Parsons is going to have to be on the field if the Cowboys plan on doing anything this year. But in this whole situation, you know who I feel the most sorry for throughout this whole thing? Brian Schottenheimer, the head coach. Because it's so unfair that this man was just given his first head coaching opportunity ever. A lot of people felt that he didn't deserve the job. And he's now given this opportunity. He's got in front of the microphones and said all the right things. He's been preaching about changing the culture, making this a tougher football team, you know, saying and doing all the right things. And now right before we on literally the brink of the season about to kick off, your front office can't even get out its own way to allow you to do all the things you want to get done. And now you got to constantly go and sit in front of the mics and answer questions because your front office ain't doing what they supposed to be doing. They playing games. So out of everybody, I feel the most sorry for Brian Schottenheimer in this whole situation. I know he's going to get in front of the mic and continue to be professional and say all the right things. But I know deep down he doesn't want to have to go through this. And nobody should. Because at the end of the day, he's the head coach. He has nothing to do with what happens or what goes on with contracts. And I believe him and Micah Parsons have a great relationship. So it's unfortunate that this had to happen. But now we're here. And I'm hoping that a deal can get done. But right now, it looked like both sides are standing their grounds. Two stubborn people, and you know you have an agent that's probably stubborn as well. But I'm hoping that the closer that we get to September 4th, Week 1 versus Philadelphia, the season opener, I'm hoping that, you know, they can come to some type of common ground and the deal can get done. But I'm way more worried about the Cowboys and Micah Parsons than I am about the Commanders and Terry McLaurin. So that's where I'm gonna leave it at right there. We just gotta wait and see how things plays out and how things play out. But hey, this is where we at. Moving on. So last week when I did my episode with D Gray, I didn't get a chance to touch on one of the topics that I wanted to touch on. We talked about our sleeper teams in the AFC, but we never got a chance to talk about our sleeper teams in the NFC. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this on this episode. So my next topic is, who is my sleeper team heading into the NFL season in the NFC? And I had a lot of teams on my mind. I could have picked my Cowboys, but I'm not going to do it especially with the Micah Parsons thing going on. So I'm not going to do the Cowboys. I had the Bears, but I think I went with the Bears last year. I can't remember exactly, but I ended up landing on this team, and I feel good about this one. My sleeper team for the NFC going into this NFL season is none other than the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Atlanta Falcons could be a sleeper. Now, am I saying that the Atlanta Falcons could go to the NFC Championship game or win or make a Super Bowl? No. What I am saying, though, is I feel like Atlanta can possibly win their division. And I feel like Atlanta could possibly sneak into the back end of the playoffs. Because what Michael Penix Jr. gave us last year and his limited times of starting was little flashes. I think now he gets a full training camp as a starter. He doesn't have to worry about Kirk Cousins. He gets the full training camp. I think that they can have a pretty decent offense. And I think Michael Penix, from what he showed us with his flashes last year, if he can keep that going and, you know, just keep progressing, I think Michael Penix can have a really solid season. Last year, in 5 games, he threw for 775 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. This is on me. I didn't realize that Drake London had a season that had the season that he had last year. Drake London had a pretty solid season. Drake London, you could argue, is a top 10 receiver. Last year, he had 100 receptions, 1,271 yards with 9 touchdowns. I believe if him and Michael Penix Jr. can grow that relationship and, you know, just capitalize off what he did last year, we got to watch out for Michael Penix Jr. Also, Darnell Mooney. I believe if Darnell Mooney can reciprocate the same season that he had last year, that could be another huge plus. Now, the big question mark for them, and they've been trying to get it out of them, as far as receivers go, is Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts. Is this the year? I'm not even saying can Kyle Pitts be the guy he was supposed to be when they drafted him? But can you give us something? Kyle Pitts, it feel like Kyle Pitts been on the trade block for like the last 2 seasons. Can this be the year? You get a new quarterback. Can this be the year Kyle Pitts? If Kyle Pitts can give them something with Drake London, with Darnell Mooney, if he can do what he did last year, we could be talking about possibly one of the best offenses in football. Not to mention Bijan Robinson, who's a top five running back in this league, coming off of a 1,400-yard season with 14 touchdowns. My only concern for the Atlanta Falcons is the defense. The defense is ranked 23rd in points allowed per game and total yards allowed per game. They also gave up 30 or more points 4 times in the final 7 games. But I like what they did in the draft. What they did in the draft was address, they say you're not supposed to draft for need, but I feel like Atlanta did that, but I feel like they did a hell of a job. Their first 4 draft picks out of 5 were all defensive players. Their first pick number 15 was Jalen Walker, edge out of Georgia. He had a phenomenal year last year in college. Jalen Walker could have easily been a top 10 pick. They got him at 15. Then they turned around and traded back into the first round and drafted James Pierce Jr., edge from Tennessee, who also had an outstanding year. I think he had some off the field issues. That's why he slid. But people was talking about James Pierce Jr. possibly being a top 15. Some had him top 10, but a top, I would say 12 to 15 pick. Atlanta was able to snag him at 26. So you get 2 young edge rushers that could come in and, possibly have major impact early. Then you go and get Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame, who is solid. And then you turn around and get another defensive back, Billy Bowman Jr. from Oklahoma, who's also solid. And I feel like those are 4 solid picks, and I feel like those are 4 guys that can come in and immediately help this Falcons defense be better, especially those 2 guys at the edge with Walker and Pierce. With Walker and Pierce Jr. So I'm gonna be honest with you, Atlanta is my sleeper, man. I think Raheem Morris is an excellent coach. I think that he can, he's like a motivational coach. I think it's all gonna be on the back of what you get from Michael Penix Jr. But I think if he can, build off of what he did in his slight time last year, and then with Drake London, if he can do what he did last year, Darnell Mooney capitalized off his year last year. Like I said, they got to get something from Kyle Pitts. And if that defense could step it up, man, I think Atlanta, the NFC South is not that hard. I think the only team they're going to be competing with is Tampa Bay. And I like what the offseason that Carolina had, but the only thing that I think Carolina is maybe a year or 2 away. So I think it's going to be a 2-man race in that NFC South. We already know I don't think New Orleans is doing anything. That quarterback situation is abysmal. So it's going to be between Atlanta and Tampa Bay. And I think if that defense can show up, and if Michael Penix Jr. could build off of what he did last year, off of his short stint, I think Atlanta, man, I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta win that division, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta was to sneak into the back end of the playoffs. But I can't wait to see. But I didn't get a chance to touch on that on my last episode, so I said, I'm gonna talk about it on this one. So for the AFC, my sleeper team was the Tennessee Titans, and for the NFC, my sleeper team is the Atlanta Falcons. So that's it for that one. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to my next subject, but I can't wait to see how this thing turns out and see if I was right. So I think I was wrong last year. So hopefully this year I can bounce back and be, a little better with my sleeper teams. Moving on. So another thing that's been heavy topic news lately has been who's gonna be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns come week 1. So I say, let me touch on that. So, who should be the starter week 1 for the Cleveland Browns? The Cleveland Browns are roughly 2 weeks in the training camp, and their quarterback competition has been under a microscope throughout the entirety of that time. And while the 4-man battle continues, it appears that at least one quarterback is losing any sort of chance to win that battle. Dylan Gabriel has struggled over the last several days. He went a staggering 3 of 14 in team drills on Friday, and it doesn't look like things are getting better. So much so that Daryl Rudier doesn't think Gabriel is capable of playing in the NFL. He is not an NFL quarterback. Not right now, Rudier said on 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. He's rolling out and can't hit guys wide open at times. He's not that good in the warm-up periods. Should this be the case, then it appears the quarterback battle is more or less a three-person race at the most. With Kenny Pickett dealing with the hamstring injury, Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders look like the top two candidates to win the job. However, Sanders was dealing with the arm injury that kept him out of team drills late last week, so Flacco looks like the clear leader in the clubhouse to be the Week 1 starter. Now, some of y'all, by the time this episode drop, a lot of y'all gonna know Shedeur Sanders has been named the starter for the Cleveland Browns for their first preseason game, right? So at first, before that news came out, I was kind of saying that this is what I've been saying all this time. I said I believe that Joe Flacco would be the starter, and then I said I felt as though eventually Shedeur Sanders would take over the helm. But before I talk about that, right? And I want to throw this disclaimer out there right now. This is not me taking shots at Dillon Gabriel at all. Dillon Gabriel made the NFL. He got drafted. It's not his fault. He doesn't control anything. This is not me taking jabs at Dillon Gabriel. But don't you just love when pettiness comes back to bite people? Because let's keep it 100. Let's call a spade a spade. Everybody and their mother knew Dillon Gabriel shouldn't have been drafted before Shedeur Sanders. Everybody knew that. And teams purposely made it their business to not pick Shedeur Sanders for whatever reason. Whether we all know the reason, but teams made it their business to not take Shedeur Sanders. And now you got people saying that Dillon Gabriel don't even look like a star, don't even look like he could play in the NFL. And then now Shedeur Sanders has been picked to be the Week 1 starter, the preseason Week 1 starter. So I love when pettiness comes back to bite these teams in the butt, because you had all these teams pass on Shedeur Sanders, the Saints, the Steelers, and now you got reports saying that the quarterback who was took before Shedeur Sanders doesn't even look like he could play in the NFL. How ironic is that? And I'm telling everybody right now, eventually Shedeur Sanders will be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if it's going to be Week 1, but eventually Shedeur Sanders will be the starter. Now, I don't know if they're going to go ahead and go with Joe Flacco to begin the season, just because Joe Flacco is the vet, and Joe Flacco may come in. But I'm telling everybody that Shedeur Sanders will be the starter for the Cleveland Browns before this year is out. But I'm so happy, and like I said before, this is not a shot at Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel cannot control where he's drafted. He can't control none of that, unfortunately. But people are going to look at this and say, well, ain't that something? The Cleveland Browns took Dillon Gabriel before Shedeur Sanders, and now you got reporters saying that Dillon Gabriel doesn't even look like he should be in the NFL. It's just comedy at this point, and the Cleveland gonna have some decisions to make. I don't know how this is gonna go, and I believe they just signed another quarterback, Tyler Huntley, if I'm not mistaken. So they possibly about to go into the season having to decide between. They about to have like 5 quarterbacks. It's ridiculous, but you know what they say: the Browns going brown all the time. But shout out to Shedeur Sanders. I hope you go out there and kill it in this in these preseason games, and do what we all know you can do. You know what I'm saying? I just find it funny, and I wanted to speak on this, that these teams purposely passed up on this man for whatever reason. We all know the reason, but they gonna paint their pictures for however they want to paint it. But teams passed up on this man for calling him cocky, saying that they tried to humble him. They tried to humble him, and him and his dad, and now look at it. So this is what you call pettylocity. So I hope that Shedeur Sanders goes out there and does what he's supposed to do. But what I believe is going to happen, I believe that Joe Flacco may get the nod. Now, depending on how Shedeur looks in these preseason games, he may go out there and kill it and be named the Week 1 starter. But if I had to guess right now, I would say Flacco gets the nod for Week 1. And then eventually Shedeur Sanders takes over and becomes the Browns starter. But that's just me. I want y'all to comment down below and let me know what y'all think. And I just can't wait to see what happens. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode, man. This is episode 56. I appreciate y'all for tapping in with me each and every week, man. Trust me, it's greatly appreciated. Y'all know what I need from y'all. For all my new followers, send it out, man. Let people know. Come over here and tap in. I need y'all to continue to smash that subscribe button. We are on our way to 300 subscribers. We right there. And I also need y'all to like and share the content when it drops. Like I said, if you didn't check out my last episode featuring D Gray, go check that out. If you didn't check out the episode before that, my full interview with Micah No Limit Phillips, who just won his fight this past Saturday too in Chicago. He told y'all what he was going to do in the interview. If you didn't see it, go check it out. He told y'all what he was going to do. He went out there and stopped that boy. He is now 7-0. If you didn't go check out my full interview with him, go check it out. And I appreciate y'all, and I see y'all next time.